we've, got a plan for 7, 8, and 9.
George Lucas quietly began developing the sequel trilogy while he still had control of Star Wars, before Disney entered the picture. In recent years, more details about George's outlines have been revealed. Episode 7 would feature Leia leading the New Republic against a crime syndicate led by a resurrected Darth Maul and his apprentice, Darth Talon. Talon, envisioned as the main villain of the film, would literally seduce Jedi to the dark side before killing them. The main hero was a young girl, probably Han and Leia's daughter, who slowly convinces a reclusive Luke Skywalker to train her as a Jedi. Her name evolved in these drafts from Taryn to Thea to Winky and finally to Kira. The movies would have explored the mystical side of Star Wars by including force creatures called Wills. Not much else is known about George's trilogy, because in 2012, he decided to put Star Wars into someone else's care.
Today, I am proud to announce the Walt Disney Company is acquiring Lucasfilm, founded by George Lucas, and the home of the legendary Star Wars franchise.
$4 billion later, Disney was the one calling the shots. They originally planned to keep Lucas on as a creative consultant, but it didn't last long.
They decided they didn't want to use those stories. They decided they were going to go do their own thing, and so I decided I will go my way and I'll let them go their way.
The creator of Star Wars himself walked away from Episode 7, reportedly feeling betrayed by Disney's rejection of his input and ending 40 years of creative control over his own galaxy. However, Disney still had George's screenwriter of choice, Michael Arndt, working on the screenplay. Arndt's version of Episode 7 takes some ideas from George's outlines while putting the characters on a more traditional Star Wars adventure. A band of pirate mercenaries led by a mysterious Jedi killer are hunting for the missing Luke Skywalker. Just before he's captured and killed, a Jedi Knight sends the Solo kids, Kira and Sam, to find Luke first. Han and Chewbacca join them on their journey, which includes a junkyard swamp planet, a swim through the wreckage of the Death Star 2, and a final duel at Darth Vader's former castle, where Anakin Skywalker's ghost would appear, shifting between the forms of Anakin and Darth Vader. Luke Skywalker would come to the rescue in the third act, and Han Solo would survive and get back together with General Leia. At some point, Sam's backstory was changed to be a defecting stormtrooper, and Kira became a scavenger from the junkyard planet, but they may have still been intended to be Han and Leia's kids. But Arndt's draft didn't tick all of Disney's boxes, and after 2 years, the script still wasn't finished. Eager to see a return on their massive investment, Disney's patience was starting to run thin.
Michael Arndt, who was going to be putting together the first draft, he usually needs about 2 to 3 years to immerse himself in something and then actually create a screenplay. And we hoped and thought that this would maybe be one of those that would go a little bit faster, but it didn't. So when we had to make the transition to Larry Kasdan and to JJ, it actually went pretty smoothly.
They brought on 2 more writers to join Arndt and get the script finished. Newly picked director J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan, who co-wrote The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Tensions started to bubble between Arndt, who was still working on George's original outlines, and Disney, who didn't exactly trust Lucas's vision.
They looked at the stories and they said, we want to make something for the fans.
At the time, the most vocal fans overwhelmingly disliked George Lucas and his prequel trilogy.
I truly believe that the 3 new Star Wars films Disney is planning on making will be light years better than the prequels. There's no way they'll be worse than the prequels. No way.
That Lucas will no longer have total dictator-like control of the Star Wars license.
They might even give us original trilogy purists the film we were expecting out of the prequels.
JJ and Disney wanted the movie to be more of a love letter to the original Star Wars trilogy. Within months, Arndt was out of the project due to creative differences, so Kasdan and Abrams were free to finish the script on their terms. Abrams added many of the story elements recycled from the first Star Wars.
On the one hand, I think cynically you could go, oh, they're just trying to do the cantina again. But on the other hand, it's Star Wars. So it's how do we do the cantina but not do the cantina?
And added his signature mystery boxes to the story, choosing to hide or change the characters' backgrounds to make the audience more intrigued.
Oh my God, like mystery boxes are everywhere in what I do. The withholding of information, doing that intentionally.
Kira and Sam Solo became Rey and Finn.
JJ, what happened to Darth Vader's grandchildren?
Oh, George. This is great.
Disney allowed one more delay from summer to winter 2015, but they refused to wait any longer for Episode 7. The script was so rushed that Abrams and Kasdan were still making major story changes in the middle of filming.
Originally, Poe was going to die early in the film, and that was the script that Oscar saw.
A week or so later, JJ wrote me and he said, "I've got to figure out Poe's in the rest of the movie now." And so this idea that Poe comes back was something that was added later, which obviously for me was incredibly exciting and fantastic. I get to live.
Nevertheless, when the dust settled, Lucasfilm had the first Star Wars movie in a decade on their hands, and the world was dying to see it. To say The Force Awakens was a massive success would be an understatement. At the time, it was the third highest grossing movie ever, received widespread critical acclaim, and became a worldwide phenomenon. Disney, Lucasfilm, and JJ had every reason to celebrate the movie that brought Star Wars mania back to the world and put $2 billion in their pocket.
I can't contain my excitement about just that.
It's hard to tell just how much of George's original vision was left in the movie, but it felt like he was the only one who didn't like the way the franchise was going.
You know, they wanted to do a retro movie. I don't like that. Every movie I worked very hard to make them different.
The world was eager to see the next chapter, and Disney was eager for another couple $1 billion. Fans spent the time between films wrestling with J.J. Abrams' mystery boxes, creating a culture of endless speculation along with the hype.
Who is Rey?
Who is Supreme Leader Snoke?
What happened to C-3PO's arm?
All eyes turned to Rian Johnson, Lucasfilm's pick to write and direct Episode 8. Apart from a few brief notes from Abrams, Johnson had complete freedom to take the story in any direction he wanted.
Last Jedi was incredibly daring, as I would say, but we really have to think of what the audience expects and what they want. And he says, no, we have to do the opposite. We have to give them something they don't expect that we want.
After a strong showing from the first spin-off movie, Rogue One, the anticipation continued as The Last Jedi rolled through production and into theaters. Disney was so confident they signed Rian Johnson on to make 3 more spin-off movies.
There's no way Rian Johnson would still be behind the camera if he wasn't making an awesome movie.
The galactic hype for The Last Jedi has been high.
I mean, everyone's so thrilled, and Rian Johnson's made such an amazing film. I can't wait for all these guys to see it.
I think we're all in for some doom and gloom, and I can't wait.
It's probably going to be really, really good.
Everything is being shifted in the opposite way to what the audience expected after 7. Rian's made Star Wars fresh and new.
Episode 8 seemed destined to be a masterpiece.
Star Wars Last Jedi is officially the worst Star Wars film I have ever seen in my entire life.
This movie physically made me sad. It ruined the Luke character.
Take the most iconic character, Luke Skywalker, and give him the most uneventful death known to man.
It was terrible storytelling.
It was sloppy writing.
For me, this is definitely the worst Star Wars.
Utterly disappointing.
I'm like, where did this come from?
This movie took everything that you thought you knew about Star Wars and it on it. And it on it again, and then it sets it on fire, and then it on it again.
You get the idea. Despite the vocal fan backlash, the movie made enough money that there was no reason to panic. Not yet. Disney still wanted new movies in theaters at a ludicrous pace, with Solo set to be the 4th Star Wars movie in just 2.5 years. But things behind the scenes were beginning to unravel. In the middle of shooting Solo, Lucasfilm fired directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller for straying too far from Lawrence Kasdan's script. They brought in Ron Howard to patch together a finished movie from those original scenes and rushed reshoots, running up the budget and ditching some of the stranger and more comedic aspects of the story.
Are you looking forward to watching a Han Solo movie as a fan?
Not really.
Despite spending over $250 million on marketing, the film didn't draw enough attention.
Good luck, Han Solo. We'll have you flying in no time.
Less than 3 years after breaking every record in the book, Star Wars had its first flop. With that being said, Lucasfilm and Disney still had the most valuable franchise in the world, and 8 more movies planned for the next decade. On paper, there was no reason to panic. In reality, they panicked. Unsure if the failure of Solo was because of the backlash to The Last Jedi, Star Wars fatigue, or bad marketing, Disney decided to just tear it all down. In the aftermath of Solo, Disney postponed a whole slate of Star Wars movies and decided to play Episode 9 as safe as possible, hoping to stick the landing on their mess of a trilogy.
A story must evolve or perish.
and Ryan and I are working closely together to make sure that our stories build off of each other and continue to evolve and take us to new places.
Director Colin Trevorrow had already begun work on Episode 9, titled Duel of the Fates. His script eventually leaked online, along with some striking concept art. It featured Rey and the other heroes searching for a device hidden in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant that could send a message to the wider galaxy. Kylo Ren starts the film learning from an ancient Sith master named Tor Valum, killing him, and dueling a vision of Darth Vader. Finn and the other heroes lead a massive revolt on Coruscant, convincing stormtroopers and citizens alike to fight against General Hux and the First Order. Leia, Lando, Chewbacca, and Rose all play larger roles in the story, eventually defeating the First Order as General Hux commits seppuku with the lightsaber. In their final confrontation on the Force planet Mortis, Kylo defeats and blinds Rey, but eventually sacrifices himself to heal her from her fatal injuries. The film ends with Finn, Rose, and Rey raising the next generation of Force-sensitive children in a new Jedi temple. But it was not to be. Lucasfilm had creative differences with Colin Trevorrow too, and they fired him shortly after firing the Solo directors. A month later, they replaced him with the man who had made them their most money so far.
Ladies and gentlemen, the director of The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams. J.J.?
The timing meant JJ had to write Episode 9 in the midst of unprecedented fan backlash over The Last Jedi, and Solo's disappointing box office. Lucasfilm and Disney needed a safe movie with one goal: get butts in seats.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
What followed was a reimagining of the story that mainly served to repeat things from Return of the Jedi and tie things up without taking any risks. Episode 9 did fine at the box office, which is all Disney really hoped for. As always, the fan reaction was calm and composed.
Rise Skywalker.
I think I'm done with Star Wars.
In the years since, Disney continued to cancel or indefinitely postpone planned Star Wars films, shifting their focus to streaming shows on Disney+. It looks like their most popular Disney Plus show will make the jump to the big screen to become the first Star Wars movie in 7 years, with The Mandalorian and Grogu scheduled for a 2026 release. Creating a blockbuster will always be a tug-of-war between creative vision and corporate decision-making, also known as greed.
Remember, kids, it's not important if it's of high quality, only if it makes money.
It remains to be seen whether Disney will learn from its mistakes, or if they're just jumping right back into the mess.
Let's all repeat the mantra, it's only a movie. And if you think you're going to go into the movie and recapture your childhood, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.